What's going on, riders? Make sure you like and subscribe. This is another hood vlog. We're right off of Normandy. For you those who aren't from LA, I know y'all seen Friday. I know it. I know y'all seen that quote, or better yet, that line where Smokey tells that pastor, which was Bernie Mac, around here between Normandy and Western, called a little 20 twin. Remember that? That's exactly where we at. Not in that same neighborhood, but we're on Normandy Street. Runs from West LA all the way to South Central, certain parts of West Hollywood. It's a long fucking main street that you gonna catch activity of all types. So here in this stoplight, you could I obviously see to my left, little liquor store in the corner. It has NHB, RTB, Rolling 20s, Neighborhood Bloods. That's the gang in this area. They share neighborhood with what would be a Hispanic gang called Harpies. Back in the days when I was a 46th Street member, those were some ops. Not the Rolling 20s, but the Harpies. Those were people that I used to like fighting for some reason, Big gang. Back in the days, it was a pretty deep gang. So you'll catch a lot of them, whether it was in juvenile hall or on these streets here. But crossing over, going across Normandy, heading towards the 30s and what will be Exposition, which will be a street that you'll be seeing that I'm gonna, that little baby Willie. But yeah, crossing over some of these streets on over through Normandy, there's different territories. Once we hit this side of the train tracks, well, you'll see it, but once we hit the other side of the train tracks, metro tracks, whatever you want to call it, that would be another gang, which will be some Crips, which will be the Rolland 30 Crips, the Harlem Crips. And they would share neighborhood with what would be ATCs, another opposition that I once had, another ops, alley tiny criminals. But on this side, we're still on what would be Harpies and the Rolling 20 Bloods. Now, I'm gonna show you a street where I lived 3 years out of my life. Those 3 years out of my life were the worst, and I'll say why. Because those were I can't say 3 years because I wasn't smoking 3 years, but those few months out of those 3 years when I started hanging around with this gang that was within that area, which was MKN, Mexican clan, they're Hispanic 13s. I happened to try drugs. See, Exposition is that crossing that street already is a different territory. But this gang was, certain around this area here. I did have some 46th Street members right on this block, Rolland Curtis. This is the block I grew up in. So let me give you a little rundown. 46th Street members here held this block down. There was no ifs, buts about that. Two brothers, my homie Bear, my homie Chino, ex-homies. They hold this block down, and that's the block I grew up in. So at the end times when I was living here, I didn't grow up. I lived about 3 years out of my life in this block. I had a best friend right here in this house. I lived right over on this house here, and then my homegirl stayed next door. She was in the gangbanger, but she was cool people. Anyways, we're off of Dinker now, but that block there, the homies was holding it down. At that time, I was already put on because I had got put on at 9 years old for breaking my homie's windshield, or his dad's lowrider windshield that I used to live on in the hood. And before I moved it from that hood to right here, Rolland Curtis, I had an incident where the homie his dad had a lowrider in the alley, and I was doing some little kid shit, throwing rocks and shit, whatnot. And they start throwing them at me. I throw them back, but I broke his windshield, and that's when I officially got put on 46. But being a young kid at 9 years old, I didn't know what the gang business was until I started getting with it, and at about 11 years of age, almost 12. But me moving over here to Rolland Curtis, that gang, MKN, Mexican Clan, was a gang that had somewhat presence as well there. And I started hanging with them dudes, and I had like my tryout period of using drugs, trying pdogs, trying weed, cigarette smoking, drinking, and all that shit. And I was about 9 or 10 years old at that time, already living on Rolland Curtis. So I happened to hang out with these dudes. They try to basically put me on, which was not an official thing because they already knew the history where I come from and what had happened. But I still went to go ahead and kicked it with them and got that court on, because that's the gang I was kicking it with, but for the wrong reasons, because I was on my tryout period of drugs. It wasn't an official thing for me because I wasn't really out there like that, which would be representing gangs. I mean, yeah, I'll kick it with them, I'll do certain shit that they do, but mainly it was just to get high. So, I mean, you could call it what it is, hood hopping, whatever, but it's not an official thing. So when I got 12, when I was 12 years old already, caught my first case. This alley here, nobody will be able to walk through this motherfucker. Nobody. If they do, they getting capped on. It's just what it was, back in the days. It was a real fucking dangerous zone right there. War zone, I would say. And shit was cracking. MKN and 46th Street were like the same thing back in them days. They were like real clicked up, like together, whatnot. They'll hang out, they do certain shit, and their enemies, both of them, had the same enemies. So, once things got real and I grew up a little more and really started looking into what would be gangs, I technically went home to the right one, which was the one I officially got put on, which was 46th Street. And man, boy, we made some presents that you wouldn't known. This is all Normandy right here, but that was the ops, you feel me? And I got put on 46 officially, from the beginning. That's where I had to be. But I'm gonna make a part 2, basically to give the full rundown, longer video. Like and subscribe. I'll be doing another the part 2 soon. Be putting it up. Remember, it's a hood block.